Hello and welcome to the basics of creating a pivot table. My name is Joshua McDonald and I will be going over creating a basic pivot table by prepping your data before the actual creation of it. We will go through some of the basic techniques that you need to go through to make sure that your pivot table is as efficient and easy as possible to use. Now, some rules for pivot table data preparation. Your data should, in your table, start in cell A1. It doesn't have to, but it should, and it does make things easier. All columns must have header field names. Your headers should be unique. Now, if you don't have headers in there, or if they are not unique, Excel will add underscores, make them unique if you don't have something. It will actually put in a unique name for you. You should avoid blank cells, especially in the first column of your data. Now, avoiding blank cells in the first column helps you set up the dynamic named ranges. Okay? And avoiding blank cells in the data fields help the pivot tables to select the correct summary function. You should remove any totals or subtotals in the data rows that your pivot table has. All right, because your pivot table will do the summarization for you. And your data should be built vertically, not horizontally. Now we're going to be going over each of these different rules. Now, pulling up Excel, we have information on this spreadsheet that does not begin in A1. Now, in this instance, it can be as simple as just deleting the rows you don't need. We don't need the company name here. We don't need those two blank rows. So I'm just going to highlight the two rows, delete them. So I right-clicked inside the highlighted area, delete, and now our data will begin in cell A1. It's as simple as that. You could create a new spreadsheet, copy and paste it into the new spreadsheet. All right. Now your column headings. Zoomed in here. You need to have column headings. So in this case, it's a simple matter of adding headings. All right. Now, if we had had a duplicate heading, it would add an underscore after it when creating it in the pivot table. So if we had two country fields for some reason, Excel would automatically make it different, but it is a good idea for you to go in there and create your own unique names. Now, you should avoid blank cells in your first column of data. All right, that helps the pivot table with setting up the named ranges and the summary functions. Now, one simple way of just getting rid of them, or maybe not even necessarily getting rid of them, maybe you need to go and find out what the unique information is for that heading. Maybe you want to completely remove them. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort the information, and we're going to sort the blanks so that they are at the bottom of the information, and then we will copy and paste that data somewhere else so that we could then follow up on it. So I am in my first column, column A. I'm on the Home ribbon tab. And I'm going to go over to my editing group. I'm going to click Sort and Filter, and I'm going to sort ascending. Now, what that did is it took anything that was a value and put it at the beginning. I'm going to double click on the bottom of the cell that I'm hovering over. This is a nice little trick for getting to the first blank. So if I double click right there at the bottom of the cell, it takes me down to the first blank, and this information right here, I could then cut it, copy it, delete it. I'm going to cut it for right now and create a new worksheet and paste it in so that we could then go back at a later time and find out what that missing information should be. And that gets rid of our blanks there. I'm going to do a Control Home, which will take me back up to the beginning of my information. Now, having cleared that up, looking at this data here, same information, just structure a little different. We have subtotals in it. We have total columns in it. If you did use the subtotal tool, it's a real easy process of removing your subtotals. So all I'm going to do is be inside of the information. I'm going to go to my Data tab. I'm going to go to Subtotal, which is in the Outline group. And I'm going to remove all subtotals. Now, if, and I'm just going to use this as an example, let's say that we had our information sorted by country here, and you had gone in and inserted a row at the end of a country, and maybe you were totaling up the quantities here. So I'm just going to do a quick auto sum there. And you had manually created subtotals. You would need to go through and physically remove those. So I would select the subtotal here. I'm going to right click and delete. I clicked on the row number. I'm going to hit delete. And then I'd go through all my data and remove those subtotals. We also have a totals price column here. Now this information, you could technically leave it, but we can derive this information in the pivot table itself. So it's a total that is kind of redundant. So what I'm going to do is just select that column and delete it. Now, I'm going to go to the last sheet that I have right here, that I have with my prepared data. Your information should be built vertically, not horizontally. What I mean by that is you shouldn't have all of your different fields going across the top. Let's say that we had a breakdown, we wanted country, and then we had France, Germany, Brazil, so forth in each one of our column headings. All right. Yes, you can create a pivot table that way, but it's going to be much more unwieldy and much more difficult to handle and to extract the information that you need. You want to build it in a vertical format. In this case, we have country with the countries listed underneath, salespeople with the salespeople listed underneath. So, some of the basic things that you need to remember. All right, and we're not done. We're going to build a pivot table from our information, but your rules bear repeating. Your data should start in cell A1. All right, all columns must, and this is very important, have header field names. Your headers should be unique. Excel will add them if it needs to and make them unique. All right. You should avoid blank cells, especially in your first column. Okay.
Avoiding blank cells, as it says right here, in the first column helps with the setup of the dynamic named ranges, and avoiding blank cells in the data fields help the pivot table to select the correct summary function. When it goes in and names, your named ranges end at the first blank, and that's why there's a problem with blanks. You should remove any totals or subtotal in your data rows. Okay? And your pivot table data will do all the summarizing you need. And if you need to build, that's a little more advanced, but you can always go in and create your own calculated fields in pivot tables. And your data should be built vertically, not horizontally. So your information should be going down the spreadsheet rather than across the spreadsheet. All right, let's take a look back at our prepared data. Now this information we've got set up, we've prepared it, we've taken the time to go in, remove any of those blanks that we might have in there. We've made sure that our information begins at the beginning of the spreadsheet. All our headers have unique names. We don't have any subtotals. We don't have any totals in our rows. All right. So to create a basic pivot table, you need to be inside of the information that you want to create your pivot table from. You go to the Insert tab and you click Pivot Table. Now here, you can choose the data that you want to analyze. Select a table or range, and then it has table/range, and it highlighted all the information. In this case, prepared data, A1 through I-772. That is because there were no blank rows or blank columns in that information. It was all contiguous. You could also go in and highlight it. Right now, I could come in here, highlight what's there, then manually highlight the information. I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut here, Control-Shift down arrow, which will take me down to my first blank. It's a nice little shortcut key, Control-Shift down arrow, but I had already highlighted across my columns. If I do a Control-Home, let me show you that real quick. Let's say I start in A1 and I want to highlight this data. Control-Shift right arrow, then keeping the Control and the Shift key down, the down arrow, and it takes us to the first blank. It doesn't include it, it takes us to it. So that's what we want. We now have the option to choose where we want to place our pivot table report. We can put it in a new worksheet or on an existing worksheet. We're going to put this one on a new worksheet. And I'm going to click OK. So it creates a brand new blank worksheet with the location for our pivot table. We have our pivot table field list. These are all of our headings, and they're all unique. We have our 4 basic areas for the pivot table: filters, columns, rows, and values. Just a nice little thing to kind of point out here, there is the task pane options where you can move it, you can resize it, you can close it. You can even choose to go into the tools here and change how the pivot table field list is structured. So I put them the different locations on the side so that I have more room for my fields. If you have quite a few fields, it's quite useful. I'm going to put it back to the fields section and areas stacked. That's the default, because we don't have a lot of fields. Now, if I wanted to add some information, all I do is I check the field that I want to add. If it's text, by default it will be placed in the rows. If it's a value, by default it will be placed in the values area. So I'm going to check salesperson, and you will notice it's placed down in the rows area. And over here I have row labels, and I have each of my salespeople. I'm going to check country. Because it's text, it goes directly below the previous one.
Now there's nothing stopping me from moving it. I can click and hold on it, and I can drag it right above the other. So now I get it broken down by country with the salespeople underneath it. We're going to be moving it a little bit more. Now, for right now, I'm just going to add quantity. And because it was a value, it got dropped into the values area. Now, it is as simple as moving a field. I'm going to take salesperson and put it over in my columns area. I'm clicking, holding, and dragging. And it restructures the information. How you need to display your data is going to determine where you're going to place your fields. Maybe I want it salesperson in the rows and country in the columns. Maybe I want to be able to filter my information quickly by country. So I'm going to drag country over into the filters area. So right now I get a listing of all my salespeople, the sum of their quantities. See, there's the total. And up here, country all, there is a drop down. And if I just wanted to see Canada, I can click OK, and I'll get just that information. I'm going to go back to that filter, select all, click OK. Just while we're here, you can select multiple items. If I select, let's say, Canada, Mexico, and the USA, all in North America right there, it says multiple items. There is a way around that. There is a tool that you can pull up. It is called the slicer, which will display the information. I'll just quickly show you this. It's in the filter area of the Analyze tab, Insert Slicer, and I'm going to click Country and click OK. And there's Canada, Mexico, and the USA. I could clear that. I can select what I want to see. I could use my control key to select non-adjacent ones. I can clear it by clicking the funnel with the X. That is a slicer. That is the only way to be able to see the names of the multiples that you might click on in your filter area. A lot more about slicers, but I'm just going to remove that for right now. Back in my information, I'm going to put country back in my columns area. See, pivoting the information, very easy to do. Maybe I want the salesperson in the columns area with the breakdown of the countries going down. Now that is a fast, quick way to create a pivot table. You'll notice here I get my grand totals on my quantities with the totals of the quantities for the salespeople. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to click outside of that. I'm going to go back to our prepared data, and I'm going to just walk through building a pivot table from your data one more time. You're inside the information or you have it highlighted. Go to Insert. And in your Tables area, you click Pivot Table. Select your range. We already have it selected. Where do we want to put it? New worksheet. I'm going to click OK. Brand new worksheet, pivot table fields. Oh, little basic thing to point out which sometimes catches people. If you're not in a pivot table, notice I'm not in the pivot table area over here. I will not have my field list. I click back in my pivot table area, my field list comes back, and the pivot tools, Analyze, and Design are available. Now, in the pivot table fields, we're going to check the item that we want. So let's say that this time we'll do company name, we'll do country, we'll do salesperson, and we'll do quantity. I'm going to put company name in my filters area. Do I have to move something over to my columns area? No, it depends on how you want to display your information, but maybe I want it broken down by salesperson and then the country that they're selling in and the quantities that they move in each one of the countries. So it's however you want it to be displayed. So that we can see more information, I'm going to put the salesperson back in the columns area. Now, just real briefly, a lot of people don't like column labels, that information here. That's your field headers in the show option on the Analyze tab. If I uncheck it, you don't see those options. The field list is this area on the side. If I uncheck it, it goes away. I have to click it to bring it back. I'm going to click on my field headers so that they come back so I can see those filters. Yes, you can filter your data from there as well. Now, those are the basic rules, which we will go over one more time, and how to create a basic pivot table. So I'm going to pull the rules back up here. Last time I'm going to repeat this. Your data should start in cell A1. Doesn't have to, but it should. All right. All columns must have header field names. They must have a name. All right. Headers should be unique, and if they're not, Excel will add underscores to make them unique. You should avoid blank cells in the first column of your data. In plain English, it's because of the named ranges. And when it goes in there and creates your dynamic named ranges, blanks cause the named range to stop at the first blank, and that's why you want to avoid blanks. You want to remove any subtotals and any totals from your rows in your data. And your data should be built vertically, not horizontally. You don't want to have, for example, the 12 months of the year going across. Have a column months with the months listed for each record going down. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Have a good day.